Hi, Mark. Welcome to the second Leanpub launch video for The Mistakes That Make Us, Cultivating a Culture of Learning and Innovation. In this video, I'd just like to ask you to talk a little bit about yourself and about your book and who it's for, and then we'll talk about the translations.
Yeah, well, Len, it's good to be back. I guess I didn't know that we were going to be kind of launching anew with the Global Author Program. So excited to talk about that. But we just reached the 1-year birthday, or do you call it an anniversary, of the book, the ebook editions and print editions of The Mistakes That Make Us, Cultivating a Culture of Learning and Innovation. This is a book that's kind of an offshoot. I've got my coffee mug full of water.
Great.
The book, The Mistakes That Make Us, is an offshoot of a podcast that I started hosting in September 2020 called My Favorite Mistake. And it's a business podcast where guests come on and share a story from their career, workplace mistakes, career decisions. And the whole point of the podcast is, to remind all of us, we all make mistakes. Like very successful people coming on this podcast have made mistakes. They're not successful because they've avoided mistakes. I think it proves they're successful because they've maybe learned how to prevent repeating a mistake, how to turn small mistakes into improvements and successes. And that's what the podcast and the book are really celebrating. So there's a lot of stories in the book from podcast guests. I added some of my own lessons learned from my career and tried to sketch together a book that helps not just individuals, bounce back or learn from their mistakes, but how do we cultivate a culture in a workplace? I think we're all better off when we can admit our mistakes and learn from them and figure out how to prevent mistakes from happening. So there's a lot of stories in there that I think would be helpful for leaders and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, one of the really great lines in your book is failure is information.
Yes, and I think that was one of my guests who said that. But when we're either in denial of that information or when we're not allowed to share that information with colleagues or with our manager, problems and mistakes fester and spiral into sometimes catastrophe. So there's kind of Silicon Valley type language of fail fast. I mean, I think we need to be failing forward. Some people say fail fast, fail often. I'm like, well, at some point we got to stop failing. I disagree with the fail often. I tried to coin, a version that would be, fail early, succeed later.
Yeah, that's really good. One of the in a job I had once, in investment banking, which is in mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that. One of the great lines was like, if you haven't failed, you haven't tried hard enough. But
sure,
succeed eventually, and in the end, is what it's all in the service of.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, an alternative is repeating the same mistakes over and over again. That's not a path to success. But when we can use a mistake or a failure as a stepping stone to success, and I think that does require, some personal humility. But in a workplace, I think if you get more than 2 people involved, it requires, a culture of what you might call psychological safety. Do you feel safe to speak up? Do you feel safe to admit mistakes, knowing that the reaction will be one that's constructive instead of punitive? And it's not about being nice. It's about being constructive.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, one of the, these are the kinds of things that seem so obvious when you say them, but if one person makes a mistake and shares it, maybe nobody else will make that mistake in your team or in your company again. But you need that culture, and you need it to be explicit and self-aware that it's okay to do that. So just to take a moment to talk about the translations, which is the reason that we're doing the second launch video for the same book. So you've used our global author service to translate your book into 31 languages.
Right.
You're an early adopter, so thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah.
And I guess the big question is, and we've had this with our other early adopters, is what can we do to help you market this book in 31 languages, and what are you planning to do, if anything, so far? Because it's still early days.
Yeah. What experiments are we going to run? Right. We might make mistakes or have some failures, if you will. I mean, at this recording, I still haven't done a formal launch. I've been sharing. It's kind of a quiet soft launch. I mean, those versions are all available for sale. I've been reaching out to people I know in my network to sort of maybe serve as early reviewers. I've talked to people so far who speak Portuguese in Brazil, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese. Still trying to friend who speaks German. People where that's their primary language, and they also are proficient in English. Just to give early feedback, and I know you and Peter at Leanpub also, want that feedback. So, we're trying to create feedback loops, and, I think the product as it is good, but it's early adopter, early days. I'm not expecting perfection, but, we'll iterate. And, like your colleague Peter was saying, the idea seems to be that it's easier for somebody to absorb even an imperfect translation in their native language than it might be to read what I'd hope is a well-written English version. Just I'm very American in that I don't speak or read any other languages, but I appreciate and admire people who do. And one of my previously traditionally published books, Lean Hospitals, was translated into 8 languages. And later this year, I'll be traveling to Brazil. I'll be traveling to Japan. So, I would love to, I'm going to use the print-ready version output that Leanpub does and do a couple print-on-demand copies of the book in those languages just to be able to give to people. Like that's, I think, a special opportunity as well.
That's a really great idea. I hadn't thought about that. But if one is, if you're traveling and you're in another country where, people are probably, if they're attending a conference talk by you or something like that, they understand English probably well enough to understand you when you're speaking. But having a copy, and especially a print copy even of their book to give to them would be a really great thing. Our approach to, it's as you say, it's still early days. We've been working on our AI translation sort of thing for a year and a half now. But that's still early days in the history of writing and translation, that's for sure. Right. Our real hope in these early days is that, people will really appreciate having a book in their own language that they can read and learn from in particular, and enjoy reading too. We've had a romance genre novelist recently used the Global Author Service to translate into a bunch of different languages, particularly actually to get them in print on Amazon. All these wonderful stories are now available in translation. It's an AI translation, probably a little bit less perfect at this point than a $10,000 human paid for translation would be.
Right. Well, but there's a huge cost difference. Yes.
Yeah. But there's a huge cost difference and a time difference as well. And one of the things, and you mentioned feedback. that's one of the things that's been at the heart of Leanpub from the beginning is write a book, publish it as you're writing it, and invite feedback. And what we're really hoping is that people will receive feedback just like they would for a normal book from their book that's been translated by AI, with people saying, and this is what we've been doing internally as well, as we sort of QA things, is ask people for feedback. And they're like, it's pretty good, but when, there's a line in your novel where it says "in your face," and that was translated literally, that's not, we know that's not that's a sort of slang phrase or populism or something like that. And those are the things that can be really helpful with feedback, and sort of people just sort of telling you, hey, page 32, line 5, that needs a little bit of a correction.
Yeah. And the feedback I've gotten so far has been positive. And look, I'm sure even with human translation, you could debate and argue which word is correct in a certain usage or sentence. But with the feedback I've gotten is that it's definitely readable, it flows, it gets the point across. I asked somebody I hope it's not saying somehow something that's the opposite of what I mean. And they're like, well, no, I haven't run across.
Oh, that's great.
And anything like that. But I don't know. Have you experimented with what happens if you translate the book through multiple languages and then back to English? Is that a game of telephone?
We've done a little bit of that. We've done a number of different things. That's got relative utility, but nothing beats people. Nothing beats people. It's funny because we're doing AI translation, but for feedback, nothing beats people. Right. And they basically say what you said. It's this is actually quite good. There's the occasional kind of like, oh yeah, we can see that there. But, as you said, like one of my jokes, I was recently on a webinar with a book industry group and in America. And I was like, if you think a human translator disagrees with an AI, get them in the room with another human translator of this same book, and we'll see what happens. The first line of War and Peace is a subject of perpetual debate, when it's translated.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to talk to me and to talk to us about your book, The Mistakes That Make Us: Cultivating a Culture of Learning and Innovation. And good luck with the translations and getting them in front of people in other countries like Japan and Brazil. And we'll be in touch about how to do this, market this, and get this out in front of people going forward.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's been a long time now. I've always valued the collaboration and the innovation and the things you're doing. So it's great to be able to work with you. Thanks again.
Thanks.